my final and the sixth overall pick of the wild card weekend six pack. And I'm going with an under. Baltimore Ravens, Tennessee Titans under 54.5. Try to get 55, obviously a key number. This is another game everyone's like, oh, it's going to go over. Everyone, it's going to be the play. Maybe it is. It's the points matchup, blah, blah, blah. But I actually see some value in the under. These two teams got to 54 in overtime earlier this year. And it's funny, people are saying, oh, this Titans offense, the Titans own the Ravens. They've won twice in the last year. Last year, the Titans were absolutely dominated. Let's get it straight. The Titans had 40. Let me say that again. The Ravens ran 40 more plays than the Titans in that playoff loss and averaged more yards per play. They outgained them 530 to 300. They just had all of the fourth down variants, all of the turnover variants, tip balls, everything, you name it. And then earlier this year, they completely shut down this Tennessee offense through three quarters. And then Tennessee had a comeback in the fourth quarter, and then they got the ball and went down and scored. And, Derrick Henry only had like 50 yards through three quarters in that game. And the Ravens were playing without Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams. Both are back. Ravens defense is as healthy as it's been all year. And when Brandon Williams is in there, when Campbell's in there, their run defense is on another level. They didn't have him in that Tennessee game. They didn't have him in that New England game when you saw Baltimore getting run on. Run defense has been really strong when those two have been in all year long. So I look at this, this Titans offense, and I think that the Ravens match up well. Now, this is why they went out and got Wolf. They went out and got Campbell to address the run defense issues that they had last year. Now, they've had to deal with a lot of injuries and COVID issues, so you haven't seen that full strength unit. But when you have, the run defense has been more than fine. I think that they'll play up here, and I don't think Henry is going to go off. I really don't. Now, he might break a run or two. It's Derrick Henry. Arguably the best running back in the NFL. But I think the Ravens' run defense is going to come to play. They can match up on the outside with these Tennessee receivers, and they can get pressure on Ryan Tannehill. And when you can get pressure on Ryan Tannehill, he is not anywhere close to as productive as he is with a clean pocket, generally with off-play action when everyone's worried about Henry. But I think Ravens' run defense comes to play. They're going to put Tennessee in pure passing situations. I also think the Ravens are going to get a lead and make Tennessee have to throw. They're going to just bring the pressure, and that's where Tannehill just hasn't been great. And last year, Tannehill threw for 80 total yards in that win at Baltimore. Titans' offensive line is also a mess. And just look at the schedule of defenses. I know the Titans' offense, by every advanced metric, has been awesome. But, I mean, I think they face the second or third easiest schedule. It helps of opposing defense, helps being in that division. I mentioned that with the Colts. But, I mean, they faced the Jags, the Vikings, the Texans, the Bengals. I mean, just absolutely awful defenses. Jags, Lions, Texans. So many bad defenses throughout the year. So I just think that this Baltimore defense matches up well. The Titans defense has been a disaster. There's nothing nice I can say about the Titans defense, but their run defense is a little bit better. They have seen this Lamar Jackson and the Ravens rushing attack twice in the past year. The Ravens have been dominating teams over the past 5 weeks, 5-0 against the spread. They have the most rushing yards in any 5-game stretch in NFL history over that time, but they played a bunch of bad teams. Their young offensive line is coming together. They're unleashing Dobbins. Lamar Jackson kind of has his mojo back, but they still are playing a lot of bad defenses and bad run defenses. I don't think that they're just going to be able to throw it all over the field. The Titans defense is really bad, but I think that they can play a little bit better than people expect them to here. But ultimately, I think the Ravens win this game. I'm very confident. I only make the line like around 3, so I can't lay it. I played some Ravens money line with the Saints. If they go down, I will play them live. I also think that one of the key factors here is third down defense. Ravens third down defense, number 2 in the NFL, allowing teams to convert on only 34% of third down conversion attempts. Titans, dead last, 51%. That's worse than NFL history. So I think the Ravens will be able to sustain drives, and they're a snail. They're slow. They're probably going to go for it on fourth downs. They're going to keep the clock running. I think their defense plays up. And don't forget about special teams. The Ravens have an enormous advantage on special teams here. Probably the best special teams unit in the NFL. Titans are arguably one of the worst in the NFL this year. That could ultimately end up making the difference. But I think 52 is too high in a playoff game where I think the Ravens defense matches up well, and I don't think
it's 54. It's 54 and a half. You said 52.
Sorry. I think 55 is too high. I still think 54 and a half is still too high, but try to get that 55 key number. If you can get I like the Ravens in a money line play. If you can get them live at a pick or underdog, like that as well. I think the Ravens are moving on. And I hope that we do get Ravens Chiefs, because I would love to break that down and see how the Ravens going to change. I don't want to – what is Mahomes and that offense going to do to this Titans defense? I really don't feel like capping that. I really don't. I just don't – that game doesn't – now I'm a Ravens fan. I'm biased. I have tons of futures. But I think Ravens win. Game stays under. Ravens defense comes to play.
I mean, you did have, as you mentioned, you had a 30-24 game. That's 54 in overtime this year, 28-12 last season. And I do think, in terms of this is a hard game to cap, because you do see teams with that do win that regular season game in a non-division matchup. They go on to win the rematch 57. They go on to win the rematch 58.7% of the time since 2003. But again, the Ravens were banged up in that game. You mentioned it. They were without some key pieces on defense. So it is a tough game to cap. The real Titans advantage in the postseason last year, to me, was their game plan. I mean, I think that, the Ravens outgaining them was somewhat misleading, because the Titans kind of stymied Lamar Jackson in a way that no other team did. They forced him to throw places he wasn't comfortable. They kept him in the pocket early, and they kept him uncomfortable in the pocket. Late in the game, yeah, he was running all over the place. They were throwing, but they had 63 dropbacks and averaged 5.5 yards per dropback, 59 pass attempts, and they averaged 6.2 yards per attempt. So it was a struggle for them even in garbage time. I mean, it was it wasn't easy. So, but is that, was that Dean Pease? And this pass defense is a lot worse. Dean Pease is gone. This pass defense is even worse. So it could all just come apart for the Titans. They've been high variance. I mean, they've played – they just blew one against Cincinnati. They laid the egg against Green Bay. Did they really care because they knew they could win next week to win a division? Who knows? But this is a tough game to cap, because I think it could go either way. But you do have working in your favor for the under. Both of these matchups over the past 12 months didn't get to 55 points. And the total right now, 54 and a half.
Yeah, I mean, and the Titans offense too. Look, it's really good. They do a lot of things well, but they're going to come out and they're going to run the ball no matter what. And I think the Ravens are going to be ready, and they try to set up their play action and everything off of that. But some of the numbers, look, the Titans played the Ravens when the Ravens that were missing some of their best defenders. They put up like 40 points on the Browns when they were down by 4. They were down 38-3 to the Browns at the half. So they've caught some teams in some beneficial spots, and they played the Bills when they put up 40, when the Bills defense was a shell of itself. This is before the Bills had figured out anything on defense. So look, we can adjust for opponent, but then when I go back and look at some of the breaks that they've gotten on defenses that they face, and then points that they put up against the Browns, and basically just Browns playing a prevent defense for a half. I think some of the Titans' offensive numbers are a little inflated. I think the Ravens get pressure on Tannehill. They're going to come to play against Henry. I think Ravens win and the game stays under.